Alright, here we go with section number 11, part number 11. This is where we're going to start to finalize some of these details. Get some stuff out of the way so we can get going on that. I left off with you doing the back. So hopefully you did that back and cleaned it up and got where we needed to go. Let's go back to the legs just for a few minutes because we're going to spend time clearing the legs and making sure they fit up under the jacket or shirt or whatever you're going to do. So it's going to be a little bit different. If you do a jacket, you'll have the flap of the jacket coming around here. If not, you'll have to put in some pants in there. You'll have to figure out what you're going to do back here. I'm going to leave this as a jacket just because it's simpler. If I start putting in a belt in here, I'm going to have a belt somewhere way up here, and it won't give me a whole lot of room to do that. So we're going to trim today some of those arms. So I'm going to start off by just grabbing a little blade. It's a detail blade. And I want to clean those legs up. Some of these leg parts need to be cleaned up just a little bit. Make sure that the legs are both the same size. I don't want a big leg on one side and a little one on the other. We'll put in a few wrinkles, just a few minutes. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on these legs. I mean, we do, but you can do some of that on your own off camera, so you don't have to watch me sit here and do that. Okay. So we've already made these other cuts. When we did these lines right here, we made these cuts, so I can remove these lines so they don't interfere with what we're trying to do. Got the boot right there. This one should have a boot somewhere about right up in here. I'm gonna make a stop cut. Cut in. Stop cut over here. Make sure you're not pushing all the way down, so breaking that foot. And those are the boot heels right there. If you want to, you can carry that over here. Take a V-tool and just carry over and connect those lines. Sometimes it's good to do that so you know where things are. Other times you're trying to screw down into there to hold it in place, and it shows through that line, and you don't really want to do that. It shows through with the screw or the dowel that you're using. Take a little bit and trim it back to the boot heel. Don't take off much. You don't need. Nobody's gonna get on to you too much if that boot heel doesn't look as deeply embedded as it does on a shoe. So don't worry about that too much. But just clean up these legs. Any stray marks you have on there, any leftover marks from where the bandsaw cut it, you want to take off those saw marks. Those are not a very good thing to have, especially if you're going to put this in a competition. If somebody wants it or wants to buy it, you want to take care of those marks. There's a few of them right there. You might be able to see them. Just take a little bit off. You don't have to take off much. Take off any broken pieces where the wood split instead of cleaved off cleanly. Okay. So there's one leg. I think we got a pretty good job on that one. Let me trim that off a little bit. Get that corner off of there. Okay. Watching these cracks here. There's a few cracks on this foot. And I'm going to have to keep my eye on them and make sure that they don't cause me trouble, because it did on my last one, so we had problems with that one. Go in here and put in a couple of those wrinkles that I talked about in one of the last videos. Make sure you got a few in there that look realistic, and don't waste a lot of time on wrinkles. I mean, if it's you need a few. You don't need hundreds. Okay, so that got me where I needed to go. Hopefully you've done this around the back. I'm going to take the edge of this back right here. I'm just going to trim that down. I don't need to take much, but I need to just get that sharp edge off of there. Time flies when you're having fun. You look up at the clock and it says 3 minutes or whatever, and then you look back just a few minutes later and it's 20, and you go, wait just a minute. I'm still not sure what I'm doing with this hand over here. I'm not sure. mainly because I think I'll shrink that hand down quite a bit and bring a edge of a pocket somewhere right around in here. Because right now we got a really short arm from here to here if that's where we do it, so we're going to have to make it a little bit longer. Anyway, don't want to worry about that a little bit yet. So I'm just taking that edge off of that jacket. Next thing I want to do is I want to take a marker. Marker is easier to see. Now on this one, I'm going to give him a jacket. He's going to do this jacket. It's going to come down like this. It's kind of open as he storms up the street. He's got his jacket right there. Underneath, that means that's going to follow right in here. It's going to follow that line right here. I'm going to do that with a V-tool. Separate the under clothing that shows here. Just got to go back over there and just scoot around that leg. And bring it back around to that other line right there. So we're going from this lapel, this edge of the jacket, all the way around to there and connect it to here. And so whatever kind of V-tool you use for that, make sure you have a small one and a large one. I'm going to start with the large one because it's going to be easier to put those in. And I'm just going to follow and erase those lines. Make sure your tool is sharp. I just sharpened mine, but I am going against end grain here, so I got to be real careful with that. I don't want it breaking off. I'm just going to scoot that back behind there. It won't show, but we'll know it's there, that line there. Like I said, I don't try to hide anything. I show you what I'm doing, so that way if it's a mistake, you will know how to fix it. You'll see how to do it. We'll figure out how to do that. And if it works well, it comes out pretty good, and we're happy with that. But I don't try to hide anything here. You don't have any fancy editing or anything like that. It's just me and you and the tool and the project and the wood. And so now what I'm going to do, I don't have a real narrow, maybe I'll look in here and see if I kind of find a real narrow one. Here's a narrower V-tool. Maybe that'll work. I just want to deepen those lines, and so I'm going to try to separate them from the bottom so that I can remove that. And that's going to require another tool. I'll pull that out in a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small gouge. I don't need a big one. I need a fairly small one. Somewhere, do I have anything smaller than that? Nope, that's going to have to do it. This is going to go in here and clean out in between the legs and under the hat, under the jacket. So I'm just going to come in here and just go around the legs and follow that line that we cut in. Because I'll come in here. Hard to see when I'm looking straight down, but I'll carve some of those out of there. This is the front right here, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But we do need to worry and separate and relieve those pants and shoes and whatever else goes up under this jacket. Just go in there and just start taking off some of that wood so it pushes it in there. Be careful how you do this, because if you push to the outside, you're going to break that off. So push towards the inside of the legs, because that way you can really get some of this wood off. And while you're doing it, you're pushing against the bulk of the wood, which means it's not going to break off on you as easily. It might still break on you, but that's one of the things you have to worry about. Underneath here, don't worry about it being perfect. You're just trying to leave the impression that your breeches are up under here and back behind the jacket, and go across, go with, go against. Doesn't really make much difference. You're just removing wood between these two legs, and very few people are going to look under there and say, oh, his pants don't look right. And you can't hardly tell of all the detail, and sometimes bases you put on them make it harder for anybody to see. I don't think anybody's going to really look at the bottom of your thing. Now, if you're putting this in a competition, that's a whole different story. You need to clean everything up. It needs to be nice and pretty. It needs to be as perfect as you can make it. But if you're selling it or giving it to somebody, yeah, you want to be as perfect as you can, but also you don't want to waste 30, 40 hours on a carving that you could do in 10 with a different tool or with a different technique. But anyway, we're still just working around those legs and just removing wood. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't do your best job. You should. But at some point, your best job doesn't require you to put in 60 hours on a carving. Not unless you're doing some big fish or, you know, antlers and horns on an elk or whatever. But just go up under there and remove some of that wood. It's almost like you don't go too deep, but you go deep enough to give the impression that there's cloth up under there where his legs cross, coming like that. You can take that edge off. Anyway, we're up under those legs. Got most of it done. I got a few more spots here I can get to. Just look it over as you're carving. Make sure you get rid of these lines here that you carved part of it and have it relieved them. Go around there and just make sure those things are cut out of there, because you don't want them left there high and dry for somebody to criticize on you. All right, that's close enough for me. We did the back. We just did the edge of the coat. We got a lot of cleanup to do. I'm not going to worry about a lot about cleanup. I'm worried about the overall structure. And so we're still on the body. I'm going to take a V-tool. Where'd my short V-tool go? I'm going to take that V-tool and I'm going to put in these major lines, because this is going to be where the jacket is going to come. And the shirt's going to be there, and the vest or whatever. Hard to get around. I'm trying to hold on to this and push, and the leg right here is in the way, so I can readjust myself, but just be careful, because some of these pieces of wood are a little bit fragile, so you got to be real careful what you're pushing up against and what you're holding. That's how that leg broke off on that other one I was doing. I was pushing while I'm carving, and the next thing I know, boop, there I got a piece in my hand. And with a pile of chips here, it can be sometimes hard to see, especially if it falls to the floor. Then you're really in trouble. That's where your stuff is. I'm going to start shaping that. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to, this is pre-detail. This is hogging work. And I'm going to put a stop cut right in there and another one right in there. I'm using a flexible knife so I can get in there. And then I'm going to come in here with my fishtail gouge and I'm going to take that line out, but I want to round everything to it. So I don't want to go real deep with a gouge. I want to round so it looks like this is clothing we're working on right here. And so I don't want it to look like his clothes are sticking to him like glue, but I also don't want him to look like the clothes are hanging on him. And that's just the jacket he grabbed. May not have been his jacket as he heads down the street, but he got a jacket on, and if it's too loose, well, I've never been in a gunfight, but I can't imagine having a jacket that's too loose is very helpful, because you might get in the way of your fast draw, or in my case slow draw, or no draw at all. But anyway, we're just doing this to get some shape going on in there so that we know where we're going to be able to put things. I got to have a structure to hang it on, and I got to have ability to be able to fit it in there too. So just take your time and work it around. Okay. So now we know that little chip doesn't want to come out, does it? So now we know kind of where we're at. Come back here, and then I want to clean that up. Clip the top of that pocket. I want to scoot that around there. This will be the pocket down here. Kind of a extended pocket where it's sticking out right there. He's got his hand in there. And we'll make a line there. somewhere right here we'll have a bag. Not a bag, a pocket, sorry. And that'll be looking like his hands go up in there. Let's take that V-tool. We'll use a small one on this one. Cut that line we just drew. Okay, so we separated the sleeve and the pocket. I'm going to go up in here. I'm going to deepen that cut just a little bit. I don't need to go very deep, but I need to separate it. And then, excuse me, I had some leftover pizza just a little bit ago, and it's not letting me speak well. Anyway, I want to come to it. I want to come to the pocket, because if my hand is tucked in there, more than likely my sleeve, part of my sleeve is going in there too. So I want to take this side off rather than this side. And depending on whether your eyes are as bad as mine or whatever, you might be able to have a hard time seeing that. But anyway, you're trying to get to where you're cutting the pocket, shaping that pocket, and fitting the arm in there. So I'm going to take a little bit off right in this corner to make it look like it's embedded in there, because it wouldn't be sticking out too much. We bring it down to the bottom of that jacket, and all of a sudden there, he's got a coat. We take this sleeve back here, little cut there, little cut on the coat side, and take out that chip right in there. And now it looks like his coat goes up into that, or his pocket goes up into that coat. You can go as deep as you need to. You're giving the impression, you're not giving the reality of that coat fitting into that pocket. Just like that. Okay. Alright. Let's take a little bit of look on here. We're going to work on these shoulders in just a minute, but what I want to do is thin that hat. If you can see, that hat is a little bit bigger than his head. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come in here with I prefer a fairly long and flexible blade. And so what I want to do is I want to get in there and I want to just start going down. What I'm doing is I'm going from the top of the head down so that I can trim some of this. Maybe this knife may be too thin. I can't really get behind it, so I'm gonna set it off on the side here, and we'll grab another longer one that's a little bit stiffer but shorter. Longer but shorter. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. Anyway, start with the front. I don't know why I started in the back. But we're trying to make a straight line from here, a flat line from here down to there. And some of it you may have to go up, because I'm going down and it seems a bit wonky. But I'm trying to make that face the shape of a face. If you know what the shape of a face is, what you end up with, if you end up with a head shape of a face for a guy with a nose, and we're just drawing a nose, his eye sockets right there come out here to the edge of the head. Instead of it being round, it comes in like that. So you got that zygomatic arch right here, and then right here where the cheekbones are, it comes out, and generally you have a face that comes in like that. So we got to give this guy that look to his face so that we can get his shape. Now, he's wearing a hat, so we don't have to worry so much about what's under the hat, because we're not going to worry about that. So we've got a nose here going right up into the eye socket. There's a separation right in there. He's got eyebrows here, but he's got big cheekbones somewhere right around in here. Can you see that very well? And so that way it goes out. It's kind of like a diamond. A man's head's kind of like a diamond. Most heads are. And some of them are wider out here, and some of them are narrower in here. Some of them have more straight areas. You're creating that. You're doing that. I'm going to give him a really big set of jowls right there. And that way I can give him whatever kind of smile I want. Kind of curve that zygomatic arch back up here so that he's got a hat. And he's got a brim. And he's got a crown. So when we look at that, we're looking at whatever kind of face you're looking for. That's entirely up to you. And then up under that hat, if you want to give him a little bit of hair, you want to give him some sideburns, give him an ear, and pretty soon, you start to look at that, and you got what you look like is halfway decent face. Anyway, you didn't sign in to see me draw a little bit, but that's where we're at. So I'm trying to get this face. See how it goes up like that, but it doesn't come down like that. That's what I want to do. I want to take some of that face down and get it going in that direction. So see, we're going up under the hat, and we're bringing this down too. And make sure you're not cutting too much off here, because you've got a hair back here, you've got a ear here, you got a sideburns if you want it. So you've got to leave room for what you're working with. This is as much about what you take off as what you leave. So if you take the wrong amount off, all of a sudden you got a design change, which is not a big deal. It just means that you've got to get in there and you've got to make that work. And so come off of there. Whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that it makes sense. So that zygomatic arch is important, because that's where the temples are. I am having a darndest old time right here at the top of this shoulder. It's like the grain goes wiggly right in there for some reason. Anyway, so we're getting that hat and then getting that face trimmed. I'm going to take a little bit more off the side of the chin here and here, so that you have an idea of where I'm going. There's the top of that jacket. There's the top of this jacket. We'll clean all this off here in a little bit. But we want to make sure that head's going in the right direction. We want to make sure we're leaving room for the things we're going to leave and leaving room for the things we're going to take off. So I'm going to switch over here to the back. And that grain gets a little bit wonkier back there too. This is a OCC 1 3/4 inch. I think you can still find the OCCs at Treeline USA. I don't know for sure. I hadn't looked at their website lately, but I think Brian and PJ has some of that stuff down there. Okay. And in between videos, when I tell you we're going to do the next video, take a good long look at your carving. So I'll take a look at this one. Where do I have room that needs to be taken care of? This arm is pretty thick. I don't need it to be that thick, but I can come in here and just nibble it away a little at a time. I don't really need a lot off of there, but I need to trim it down so that this one isn't much bigger than the other one. So I've got to carve in synchronicity. Is that a word? I don't know for sure, but they got to be in tandem. So I got to take one off, a little bit off of one side, a little bit off the other, saving room for what I need. I still need to drill this hole for his gun, so I can't really make this real thin. I have to figure out, okay, that gun is going to be somewhere here on the top of that arm. We're going to drill straight down about this deep. We want to go down about this deep. So we got to be careful how we do that. I got to come at a little bit of an angle so that way that the gun will fit in there. So it would be somewhat like, I don't know where that other one went that I had laying here just a minute ago, but it's here somewhere. I'll find it and eventually get to it. But we want to make sure we're leaving room for what we need and taking off what we don't. And so at some point, now that I've got all that trimmed around, I'll start working on the arms. I'm going to take that arm and I'm going to separate this just a little bit more. So I'm going to do a V-cut or a stop cut from this side, or a slicing cut. And then I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. And this is just separating these two arms. They're not really going to be separated, but they are. So we got them separated. Here's your sleeve back here. That shoulder looks pretty squarish. So we'll grab a stiff knife because the small one wants to bend. Starting to look a little bit more like a shoulder instead of a block of wood sticking out there. Same thing over here. We carve up here at the top of the collar. We're going to take a little bit of that hump off right there because you don't need that hump. He needs to have a little bit more of a little bit of the heft taken off. So keep in mind how wide this one is and how wide this one is. Keep them somewhat similar, even though one you're looking at it straight this way and this one you're looking at it sideways. Make sure you're keeping that straight and making it work for you, because all in all, this is a pretty good carving. I like him. I prefer doing him small when I do demos because that way I can work quicker. I really prefer it being bigger. This is only about 6 inches tall. I prefer these to be about 8 because you get a better perspective and people enjoy that big carving look instead of that little carving look. Alright, we haven't done anything to the face. We haven't done much to the arms except making them thinner. So I'm gonna nudge this front part of the arm back there, back a little bit, being aware of where this is at. I don't want to take off too much, but I want to take off enough so that I can fit it in there and it still looks like an arm tucked in there. And I'm going to take a little bit more off of that cut right there, because we still want kind of not a deep groove, but an enhanced groove in there. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone for a while. We'll come back and we'll drill that out. We got this arm kind of coming down. His shoulder comes out and then drops down. So we'll trim a little bit of that off. Trying to keep an eye on the time because I said I would do him about 30 minutes. I like to do him about 20, but I'd have to make you do a lot of it at home. So I'll stay with you. I don't want to drop you off and dump you, so you don't need to do it all by yourself. Okay. Alright. I like the way he's looking from here on out. Down here, what we've got are details, clean up. What we got in here are a little bit of details and cleanup. You can use whatever tool you want. You can even use V-gouge in here. So here's a big one. That cleans up a little bit more when you're down here, so it makes it a little bit cleaner. I wanted to use that little one to get started so that we could feel where we're going. Flip it on its side, make it like a fish tail gouge, and carve up under there. That's a little bit cleanup for you to do at home, as is the rest of the shoes. We'll work on the jacket when we come back the next time. But we're going to work on that head. Before we leave, let's draw this in there. I want to carve the center line. Turn this head if you want to, but you probably should have done that before now. I don't have a whole lot of room to get up under that hat, so I'm going to put his eyes somewhere around there. I want to put the nose. If I went a third to the eyebrow, a third to the nose, and a third to the chin, that would put that nose about right there, bottom of that nose. Feel free to make it higher if you need to, but that means my triangle somewhat like that. You'll have some smile lines, laugh lines coming out here. These will come off in a little bit so we don't worry about it. And then basically we got the face. For some of you, a mustache is easier to do because I can do a mustache right there. This part's already sticking out. Others of you like to do a regular face. It's up to you how you want to do it. There's a face. There's a face. Lost his gun there. Don't want to lose that pistol. There's a face. Here's another face. Another one. The motif for this, or the idea behind it, is he's angry about something. So the original one here, he don't look too angry, but he looks like he don't want to be bothered. So figure out what you're going to do in terms of the face. We'll work on it together, but before we go, we're at 30 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to take somewhere here and draw where the front of the ear is going to be. Now, a lot of times I get confused when I go from here to the other side. I'll draw a line and I'll draw a line and I'll follow that line over and then line them up. And oftentimes I get that line lined over and I get close to where I need to be. One way to make sure you are close is to use one of these little devices right here. Let me dig it out of there. This is good for measuring symmetry. So if I wanted to see the back of the ear where his eyes are, where his nose is, that looks like it's close. I'm at that line back here. I'm at that line up here front. Now if I flip over to here and do the same thing, am I close to that line? Yeah, I'm off a little bit. So it appears to me the back one, this other one, is too far back. Because if you measure the distance from here to here and the distance from here to here, it's longer. So it's your choice whether you make this is the front of the ear. Your zygomatic arch is going to come back here, your sideburn somewhere like that. I'm going to move this one forward. I don't need to move it much, but I do need to move it some because it's right here. Look where that's at, in the middle of the shoulder. This one's right there, and this shoulder's thrown back because he's carrying something. And so somewhere along about right there, from the middle of that line for the nose to the ear, that's about as close as I'm going to get it. Flip it over and do the same thing here. From that line in the middle to the ear, I'm close. This one's, I might have moved it a little bit too far, but I think I'm going to leave it there, wait and go and see, because I may not get there. Anyway, back there you're also going to have an ear, so you got a triangle. And then if you want a sideburn, it's up to you where you want a sideburn or not. I'm not saying you got to have one. I'm saying if you want to do that, plan that out. And then the back of the hair comes down about halfway down the ear. There you got ear. There you got hair right there. Okay. Follow that from the front of the line. We're just going to draw a few quick lines. Front of the jacket. Follow it around. And there's the jacket. If it's got a collar, draw a collar in there. And we can start working on the face next time. I'm going to leave you here. We're at 33 minutes. This is episode 10. We'll be at episode 11 next time. And we'll start working on that face. That might be the one thing that takes us the longest, that and the arm, because we got to fit that in there. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for carving with me. Hope you have a great day. See you next time. God bless you. Take care. Be safe out there. Take care of your carving and your hand.